The history of Tamriel is a complex tapestry, a chain of cause and effect where the threads of one event are woven directly into the next. How did a slave rebellion in Cyrodiil accidentally lead to the birth of the Dwemer? What connects the fall of an orcish city to the rise of one of High Rock's greatest trading powers? Hi guys, my name is Jason, I'm a fantasy author and I'm obsessed with this kind of interconnected storytelling. It's the focus of this channel and my own books, and today we're untangling that tapestry by exploring the First Era to see how nearly 3,000 years of war and magic shaped the world of the Elder Scrolls. The First Era officially begins in Year Zero, marking the shift from the hazy mythic past to recorded history. Now, of course, this wasn't a planned arbitrary date. It was pinned to a major political event in Valenwood. It the fiercely independent, often feral wood elf tribes into a single kingdom under the Camoran dynasty. This new unified Valenwood wasn't just a local power. The Ayleids, the cruel slave-owning elves of Cyrodiil, saw it as a useful buffer state between them and their high elf cousins in Somerset, allowing them to focus on their true passion, which was making life a living hell for their human slaves. The Ayleid Empire was the dominant force in central Tamriel. Their civilization was built on a foundation of systematic and unspeakable brutal slavery. The Needs, the human inhabitants of Cyrodiil, were treated as little more than cattle for labor, ritual torture, and twisted magical experiments. Ayleid society was also deeply divided. A religious schism had been growing for centuries between the traditionalists who worshipped the Aedra and the more radical clans who had embraced Daedra worship. The conflict boiled over at the scouring of Wendelbeck, where the Daedra worshipping clans crushed the traditionalists. From then on, Daedra worship became the norm, and the Ayleids' cruelty intensified as they sought to please their dark patrons. They were unknowingly setting the stage for their own destruction. But an even greater storm was brewing in the north. While the Ayleids were busy with their internal drama, the Nords of Skyrim were consolidating their power. In the year 143, Harald, a descendant of the legendary Ysgramor, was crowned the first High King of Skyrim, officially forging the various holds into a single independent kingdom. This wasn't just about defense, it was the birth of the first Nordic Empire. Under High King Vrage the Gifted, Nordic armies armed with terrifying power of the Thu'um, or the Voice, swept across northern Tamriel. They conquered most of High Rock, large parts of Morrowind, and even pushed into northern Cyrodiil. For a time, it seemed the age of elven dominance was over and the era of man had begun. This expansion, however, stretched the Nords thin and put them in direct conflict with a rebellion that would change the world forever. Now, down in Cyrodiil, a Nordic slave woman named Alessia prayed for deliverance. The gods answered, sending her the demigod Moriha, a winged man-bull, and the warrior hero Pelenal Whitestrake. This went beyond a fight for freedom. This was a holy war. The rebellion gained unlikely allies from Ayleid clans who still worshipped the Aedra and saw Alessia's cause as a just war against the Daedra-loving tyrants. Then, in 243, after a brutal war, the slave army stormed the White Gold Tower, the heart of the Ayleid Empire, and Alessia was crowned the first Empress of Cyrodiil. In a divine vision, the dragon god Akatosh made a covenant with her, sealing it with the Amulet of Kings. As long as her descendants wore the amulet and kept the dragon fires lit, the barrier between Mundus and the Plains of Oblivion would remain secure. To unite her new empire, Alessia created a new religion, blending the Nordic and Nordic pantheons to create the Eight Divine. The first human empire was born, but the Nordic Empire was about to crumble. The Nordic Empire's rapid expansion had created powerful enemies. In Morrowind, the Chimer and the Dwemer, two elven races with a long history of distrust, did the unthinkable. They formed an alliance. The Chimer were devout followers of the Daedric princes Azura, Mephala, and Boethia. The Dwemer were a race of agnostic scientists and engineers who rejected the gods entirely, believing it only in logic and reason. Their only common ground was a shared hatred of the Nordic invaders. Led by the Chimer general Indoril Nerevar and the Dwemer king Dumak, this alliance, known as the First Council, successfully drove the Nords out of Morrowind in 416. Back in Skyrim, this defeat caused a crisis of faith. A Nord named Jurgen Windcaller, devastated by the loss, meditated for 7 years. He came to believe the Voice was a gift for worshipping the gods, not a weapon for conquest. He founded the Greybeards, a monastic order that would forever change the Nords' relationship with the Thu'um. But the peace in Morrowind wasn't to last. The alliance between the Chimer and the Dwemer was built on a foundation of sand, and it was only a matter of time before their fundamental differences in philosophy would tear them apart and perhaps the world. Now, by the way, I personally fund this channel and don't do sponsors or mid-roll ads, but if you enjoy this kind of storytelling, I do have something you might like, and that's my fantasy all-access library, which includes all of the fantasy novels I've written in a huge shared universe where all of Earth's mythologies coexist. It's how I keep the lights on and the videos coming, so if you're interested, you can check out the link in the description. Now, the crisis in Morrowind came when the Dwemer discovered the artifact to end all artifacts, the Heart of Lorkhan, buried deep beneath the Red Mountain. The Dwemer's chief tonal architect, Kagranak, saw this as the ultimate opportunity. He began forging a set of tools to tap into the heart's divine power, planning to use it to power a new mechanical god called the Numidium. To the Chimer, this was the ultimate blasphemy. They saw it as an arrogant attempt to mock the gods and usurp their power. Despite the friendship between Nerevar and Dumak, war was inevitable. In the year 700, the armies of the Chimer and the Dwemer clashed at the Battle of Red Mountain. The battle was a bloodbath. At the height of the fighting, as Nerevar and his forces breached the Heart Chamber, Kagranak made a final, desperate move. He struck the Heart of Lorkhan with his tools. In that instant, every single member of the Dwemer race all across Tamriel vanished without a trace. No bodies, no souls, just nothing. They were simply gone. What happened next is shrouded in mystery and contradiction. Nerevar died under suspicious circumstances. His three closest advisors, Vivek, Alessia, and Sothasil, used Kagranak's tools on the heart and elevated themselves to godhood, becoming the tribunal. Enraged by this betrayal, the Daedric prince Azura cursed the Chimer, turning their skin to ash and their eyes to fire. They became the Dwemer, or Dark Elves. And this single battle saw the disappearance of one race and the birth of another, and established a new pantheon of living gods that would rule Morrowind for the next 3,000 years. The mystery of the Dwemer's fate would become one of Tamriel's greatest and most chilling, yet unsolved, riddles. While Morrowind was being reshaped by divine politics, a literal world-shattering event was happening to the west. In 792, the continent of Yokula, the homeland of the Redguards, was destroyed in a cataclysm and sank beneath the sea. Survivors fled east in a massive fleet known as the Ragada, which would be corrupted into the name Redguard. This warrior wave landed in what would become Hammerfell. They were not peaceful settlers, though, bringing with them a fierce warrior culture and an unparalleled skill with the blade. They carved out a new home for themselves, displacing or conquering the native populations. This era also saw the continuation of one of Tamriel's saddest stories, the persecution of the Orcs. The Redguards and Bretons of High Rock viewed the Orcish city of Orsinium as a haven for bandits and monsters. In 950, they formed an alliance and laid siege to the city. The siege lasted for 30 years, a testament to the Orcs' resilience, but in 980, Orsinium finally fell. The city was razed, and the Orcs were scattered across Tamriel, forced to live as outcasts in mountain strongholds. The destruction of Orsinium became a core part of Orcish identity, cementing their place as a people perpetually at war with a world that seemed to despise them. Back in Cyrodiil, the tolerant faith founded by Alessia had been corrupted. By the 4th century, a fanatical anti-elven monotheistic sect called the Alessian Order had seized control of the empire. They ruled for nearly 1,000 years, imposing a rigid and oppressive dogma. Their obsession was purifying their god, Akatosh, or any elven influence from his conceptual ancestor, the elven god Ariel. Around the year 1200, a cabal of Alessian zealots known as the Mercati Selective attempted a ritual of unbelievable arrogance. They tried to use a magical artifact to literally shear the elven aspects from the dragon god of time himself. They succeeded in a way. They broke him, and because Akatosh is time, they broke time itself. This event, known as the Dragon Break or the Middle Dawn, plunged Tamriel into chaos. For the next 1008 years, linear time ceased to exist. Multiple conflicting timelines occurred simultaneously, and historical records from this period are a schizophrenic mess of contradictions, as one might expect. A king could die in 2 different places at once, entire cultures claimed to have been shielded from the chaos, while their neighbors experienced centuries of madness, and the Khajiits say the moons themselves danced in the sky, causing their people to be born into every one of their first stocks at once. It was a millennium of cosmic insanity. When time finally snapped back into a single cohesive timeline, the Alessian Order's power was broken. The empire they had ruled collapsed in a brutal conflict known as the War of Righteousness. Cyrodiil shattered into a collection of squabbling states, and Tamriel entered another period of chaos and fragmentation. This power vacuum would eventually be filled by a new and unexpected threat. The final centuries of the First Era were defined by the arrival of invaders from the eastern continent of Akavir. In 2703, an army of Akaviri, the Sieski, landed in Skyrim and cut a bloody path south. The fractured kingdom of Cyrodiil was powerless to stop them. That is, until a warrior That is, until a warlord from the Colovian Highlands named Riemann rallied the armies of Cyrodiil. At the Battle of Pale Pass, Riemann defeated the invaders, but something strange happened. When the Akaviri heard Riemann's voice, they knelt before him believing he was the Dragonborn they had been searching for. Riemann accepted their surrender and integrated the entire Akaviri army into his own, forming the elite Dragon Guard, the precursors to the Imperial Blades. With this new disciplined army and their advanced tactics, Riemann's Cyrodiil swiftly unified all of Cyrodiil and much of Tamriel, founding the Second Empire. The Riemann dynasty ruled for nearly 2 centuries, expanding the empire and ushering in a golden age. But it all came to a violent end. In the year 2920, the final year of the First Era, the last emperor of the line, Riemann III, and his heir were assassinated by the Morag Tong of Morrowind. In the ensuing power vacuum, Riemann's Akaviri potentate, Versidushe, seized control of the throne. He abolished the Riemann dynasty and declared the beginning of a new age, the Second Era. The nearly 3,000-year span of the First Era was over, but its legacy of fallen empires, vanished races, and newborn gods would define the world for millennia to come. And that's how 3 millennia of chaos and conflict set the stage for the rest of Tamriel's history. It's that kind of deep, interconnected world building that I absolutely love. And if you feel the same way, you should really check out the Fantasy All Access Library. It's my group, my community that I have on a platform called School. There you will get access to all of my novels, ebook and audiobook for all past and future releases, which is at least 1 book a month. We also do weekly live calls where we talk about writing, lore, and all things fantasy. It's the best way to support the channel and dive deeper into a new fantasy world if that interests you. So the link is in the description if you want to take a look, and I will see you in the next video.